Today's podcast is sponsored by Kauri. KauriWine.com. That's KauriWine.com for those of you who don't understand my American accent. They specialize in organic yeast and nutrients. I use their products, including I've got some experience with their barrels. They import premium oak barrels from top French and American barrel producers, Sari and Leroy. Great cooperages. Again, I have firsthand experience with these cooperages, both with Chardonnay, and I think Chardonnay, really expresses oak, so there's no hiding any clumsiness in there, and these were definitely great. They're always passing through, the guys from Kauri, so drop Dean Wishart an email or one of the other folks at Kauri, especially if you're over in Australia. They're always out in the field showing trials, really trying to push the edge, push the limits with research. And I'm sure they'd be happy to show you some oak trials of what they got going on. And guess what? They're affordable. I'm not going to give you a price because I don't know it, but go to their website and touch base. They'll make you a deal. That's KauriWine.com, KauriWine.com. We're also sponsored by Decibel Wines. The pre-order is up now for the very first ever Testify Red. That's 100% Malbec that's come out that I've done to some rave reviews by Robert Parker's Wine Advocate, Sam Kim's Wine Orbit, Raymond Chan's Wine Review. It's definitely been my most lauded and applauded wine I've released yet. And, that is the whole point behind Testify. It's sort of hand on heart. It's my best effort to date. Really pure expression of Giblet Gravel's Malbec, and certainly the best Malbec I feel I've ever made. And, I'm loving that we held this back for about 15 months in bottle before release. We really took our time with the packaging. It's got, a really cool label and just sort of fun story behind the whole thing. So obviously makes for a great gift if you're thinking about that. But, get a 6-pack. Lay some down, try one now, try one every 6 months or so. But don't expect it to last very long. Only 210 6-packs produced and released of this wine. So very limited release, and I'm excited to get it out there. Just go to decibelwines.com to order one of those beautiful 6-packs we're doing with free shipping. You can pre-order it now. The official release will be next week when you can get we'll be able to get individual bottles, certainly 3-packs. That'll be from basically July 24th on in places like the U.S., Australia, and the U.K. as well. Just visit decibelwines.com, click Shop Decibel Wines, and then choose your flag. It's very easy. There's also the full range of Decibel Wines up there, and if you use the promo code DBPodcast, you get 10% off your order. Really? Come on, that's too much. I'm too nice. Too nice to you guys. Okay, Willie D, take it away. Today on the podcast, we have Peter Robertson from Brookfields Vineyards. Peter and his wife Sharon established, I think we talked about somewhere in the 70s, where he established Brookfields Vineyards. He's just seeped in history, and so is that place. He, is one of the first people making fine wines and had, true vision to achieve what he has achieved. It's a real family affair. His daughter Rachel runs the functions there. They do weddings there all the time. It's just like a real warm place. So many wineries you pull up to and they're austere and intimidating. And as soon as you pull into Brookfields, you feel like, I could hang out here and have a glass of wine. And him and his winemaking and viticulture team includes Carl Nicholson. They're just cranking out great wines all the time. I can't remember ever opening a Brookfields wine that I didn't enjoy and didn't have warmth and character to it. They can be found on brookfieldsvineyards.co.nz. They're on Instagram at Brookfields_vineyards, and they keep a good job of updating that. They're also on Facebook, and I have to say a huge part of my education when I first moved to New Zealand was going to the regular Thursday afternoon Brookfields tasting that still happens to this day. We talk about it a bit on the podcast, but it was a huge part of my New Zealand wine education. And I've since told other people that just moved to Hawke's Bay that it should be mandatory in their education. Also about Australia and South Africa, two places that I certainly needed advice on and help with my palate. And, it's nothing like tasting blind and being surprised by wines to learn. So, yeah, he's just been a good friend to me right when I moved here and a big influence on me. I sort of think like if I'm living a life in wine like Peter Robertson is, then I'm probably doing something right. So anyway, let's talk to Peter. Out there you have your eye on or anything?
No, I might put some plants in, a few more plants this winter.
Where is the Malbec vineyard?
Well, we have Malbec at Ohiti and at David Ware's in the Tukituk Valley.
Oh, in Tukituk, okay.
Yeah.
We've started, by the way.
Oh, cool. That's okay.
Just did my sound check by asking you about Malbec. But that's probably a really good place to start, as the fact that you've got sort of vineyards that you've worked with all over the place, right? Well,
we only buy grapes in from two other sites as such. Johnny Lyons, just down the road from here.
Yeah, that's the hillside Syrah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And David Ware in the Tukituk Valley, Moore Road.
Have you had your ups and downs with Syrah the last few years like everybody else with cold rain and things like that, or has it been more kind to the hillside?
We have Syrah at Ohiti, and that's in Stones, and it's doing very nicely.
Good.
So, yeah, we've got two good sites for Syrah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we might as well start back to the beginning. You realize, I think Carl may have mentioned this, that we did a recording, I think when I was at EIT, and that has actually, and I just interviewed you for a paper that I was doing, I didn't feel like writing it down, so I sat a little recorder down, and that could have been the seed of what's turned into this whole podcast, I thought after that, honestly, really after that, I thought, because you told me some history, which we'll go back over today, that I thought, man, there's not enough of this being written down or recorded or put into the archives for people. And this medium, I think Mark Sweet's book was pretty cool last year or a couple years ago that came out. I think stuff like that's really important. But this medium for the long conversation, I think, is tough to substitute. Everything's now bits and bobs. I saw Yvonne on the news this morning on the morning show or whatever, just a clip on social media. And she did great, she's good, what she does. I was like, it's too short, you know what I mean? And everything was kind of just quick. And I said, talk about Hawke's Bay Chardonnay and talk about Syrah, and it was, it was all a bit, chopped up and ready to go, where I think sometimes it's just good to sit down and talk, particularly about wine, where it's like a slower process. And can't we just relax a little bit, Peter, So
Sounds good.
So from my memory, it was McDonald Winery. Is that did it start before that from you?
It was McWilliams Wines.
McWilliams, okay.
Under Tom McDonald. And
yep.
That was 74. Yeah.
And was that your first winemaking gig, or?
It was. I'd left. I'd done a degree down at Otago in biochemistry, and then I did a postgrad at Lincoln. That's before the postgrad winemaking courses, and it came up here en route to Australia or South Africa, and I'm still here. And rang up McWilliams Wines, thought I'd get a vintage job, and yeah, it just grew from there.
That was 74.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was going on then? What were you guys growing and putting out?
Oh, it was the days of Mullaturga. Dreadful variety. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Hence, we planted Pinot Gris at Brookfields early on. But it was a good place to start. And, of course, Mr. McDonald, as we all called him, was very generous with wines, and was able to taste a lot of imported wines, French wines especially, and it was a place to learn.
And where was it exactly?
That was Faraday Street.
That little turnaround. Yeah, okay, that's pretty
we,
tight in there.
Yeah, well, we did quite a few million litres there.
That's crazy. Yeah, I once was at a house right across the street from there, and was looking over. Like, that's it there, and it looked like you could just back the trucks in and away they would go, and it had like a loading ramp kind of there.
Yeah, it was, as far as design, probably some of the older wineries down in Provence, so the closest I could link it to.
Right in town as well. And how long before you split off to...
I was there 3 years, so I did a year in the cellar as foreman, and then sadly Dennis Cossa, who had been the chemist there for many years, passed away, and I was then chemist, and I was there with Evan Ward, and then...
He's somebody I'd like to sit down and talk with. Yeah.
No, we worked well together. And then after I'd left, Alwyn, of course, joined the team.
You guys went on to do great things on your own.
Different things.
Yeah. And you just said, this is a site, this is where I'm going to make Brookfields, or was it a long process, or just let me just go do this kind of thing?
Hawke's Bay has been very good to me. Within a year of living here, I'd built a house. You know, I came here with no money, and so Hawke's Bay has just been very good to me. I love the climate. I have another passion in horses, and so I've been able to make wine my work and still have horses, which is great.
So was that part of the decision of where you wanted to go?
So. Why would I move? Things were happening. And then I went to the freezing works, worked there night time, and the money was very good, and bought Brookfields, and it just grew from there.
Yeah. It's got a feeling like that when you go to that place, that it's, feels a little real homey there whenever I go there. When I first moved here, that was the feeling I got. I thought, I can come here and hang out once a week and go to this tasting and hang out with these people. And at that time, you said you put in Pinot Gris. What other thing were you growing?
Early on, golly, you're pressing buttons now. Gewürztraminer, Cabernet, of course, having worked with Tom McDonald, and but it was slow in the early days. We started making Pinot Gris in the mid-'80s, and Cabernet in the early '80s. We recently 3 years ago, cracked a bottle. My daughter was born in '85, and so 2015 we cracked a bottle of what was the Reserve Cabernet, and it was still holding up well, so that was a thrill. But it was early days, and the industry, of course, was very different then. And Jack Ellis, who owned the winery, he ultimately came to me one day and said, "Peter, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse." And he wanted to sell it. He had inherited it. Jack was more interested in engineering, and so yeah, I was a bit lucky.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Hang around. Sometimes good things happen.
Yes.
And you said the industry was quite different then. Where were the wines going? Who was drinking them? Was it just pretty local, or?
Well, at McWilliams Wines, we were thrilled. We were selling Spritzig to Fiji.
Oh,
Like, export was zilch, minimal.
yeah,
And and so what's happened in the last 40 years is nothing short of phenomenal. Well, just for the whole New Zealand industry.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's a pretty crazy story.
it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. Well, it certainly got my attention, and that was 20 years into it, probably, or 15 years into the big boom.
Well, I was lucky enough to taste Tom McDonald's Cabernets, especially his 51 and later ones, and you could see the potential. There was potential here.
Where were those sites? Where was that fruit coming off of?
The best ones I felt came from Church Road.
Yeah, from over
Yes.
right in Taradell there.
Yes, and at that point in time, some came from Tukituk,
Mm-hmm.
and then there were a number of other sites, but from memory, they were certainly the two best sites. And lo and behold, I ended up drawing grapes from the Wary family, which is just over the road from the Tukituk site.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all comfortable and
That was
ties into the story.
history.
And you had no idea what clones or anything like that at that
Oh,
stage?
they were just mass selection in those days. There was no LC10 out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of that, I thought that was pretty interesting that I obviously used to work over at Paratua, and Jason had mentioned when they were establishing Paratua that I think you had mentioned the 15 clone. You guys were talking about the different clones on the at Paratua, and it turns out that LC, and I can say this from experience, the LC10 on those Bridge Paw soils aren't as good as the 15 is over there, whereas everybody loves the LC10 on the gravels, it seems like.
Love stones.
Yeah, so being a bit sort of chunkier soils over this way, the 15s always performed better every year I was there. LC10 seems to be getting better. Maybe it's with deeper roots.
Yes, I agree with that. I certainly think you need a little bit of age in the vine.
A little, but yeah, they're gaining intensity, I would say, and gaining character. But even 13, 14, which were great years for us there, the 15s were far and away. Clone 15 was far and away better wines, more intense, more character. Nothing really wrong with the LC10, but just kind of. So it's pretty interesting. You get caught up in how much you love a clone, but you could just screw it up anyway.
Well, LC10 ripens about a week earlier than the old mass selection. So for Ohiti, it's the difference between harvesting it Anzac weekend, so to speak, and there's bloody rain about to fall, and harvesting it, say, 18th, 19th or 20th of April.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Oh,
That's a late season, mind you. But no, it's I love it.
And over the years, have you seen or have you been intimidated at all by any trends or not? I'm talking more climate trends here, and speaking of timing and things like that, have you seen are things looking earlier? Are we getting more rain? Do you think, or is it just certain cycles? And we're talking 40 years. You could probably comment on, right? Not to date you too much, but
I do believe if we forget global warming, there are bigger cycles that take place. And at Brookfields, they got frosted in 1947. I don't think Brookfields is... Well, we've got a windmill over the road now, but I've never been frosted at Brookfields, whereas the Alice's, they used to have to put out the burners, etc. I do believe there is a bigger cycle, and strangely enough, at Tahiti the last 2 seasons, we haven't spun the windmills.
Yeah, yeah, no,
I
it's,
know they've spun over this side of the river because I hear them in the morning. But,
yeah,
for whatever reason at Tahiti, it's been quite good. So yeah, it's interesting times.
yeah. But you think it's more of a trend, and well, storm wise too. I mean, it just seems like I, I don't know. I laugh when it's like every year we're going to get rain in March. It's if we don't get it, it's a surprise, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced that. And when we came out the other end, and this is somebody who stepped in from not knowing anything about wine growing and not knowing anything about the region, but all those years turned, you know, except for the major cyclone years, which were sort of 1 in 7 or something like that, that by the time he came out the other end, oh, it's great vintage, you know. It's just a bit of a panic right in the somewhere in that March time, you know, right before, you know, the whites come in and what's going to hang on. You might have a vineyard that's struggles or something, but overall it seems to be a pretty similar trend every year, you know.
I don't crop heavily, so we only put down 2 canes. That's probably going back to Tom McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
But equally elsewhere in the world. And we do a lot of thinning, and I do leaf plucking. Uh, so I essentially plan for the worst during the growing season,
Yeah.
and that way we tend to come out okay. Tahiti is quite sheltered. Um, I'm very one-eyed about Tahiti. It's a magnificent site, and the fact that we're on stones and it's free draining, it just has so much going for it.
So I can walk across the street to that hill. I walk up there, get a little exercise sometimes, and I can see that whole block over there. Is that everything you take from that block, or is there a couple other growers over there?
No, I used to lease another block, but I ceased leasing that once I had all the LC10 into production, and so I've got enough Cabernet. And as I say, what have I got? About 3 hectare of Cabernet, 2 hectare of Syrah. It's all in all, I've got about 17 hectare in production.
And from what, you know, taking your amazing winemaking out of the equation, what do you see the wines that come off of that compared to, say, the Gravels or Bridgepaw or something?
One thing that struck me years ago when tasting wine at the Mission, because they pull quite a lot of fruit from the gardens, the wines from the Tahiti Valley are very fruit driven, and that's what I picked up on.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. A little more fleshy fruit,
Yes.
but brighter slightly too.
And initially when Tahiti was planted, it was planted for us, or half it was, and then someone's planted for Crossroads, and then I picked up a quarter shareholding, and then Brookfields ended up buying the rest of Tahiti. So in a way, I've sort of grown into it, and we've replanted half of Tahiti, and I like to think I've got my plantings right now. You don't always get it perfect straight off, but yeah, it's just a wonderful site. I love being there first thing in the morning. Can cut the air with a knife. It's so fresh.
Yeah,
And in the summer, it is extremely hot. So as a result, we do make Cabernet year in, year out as a single varietal.
mm-hmm.
And not many can do that.
And from my experience, I always saw you on a tractor quite a bit. Is that still the case these
I
days?
still do a fair bit of tractor. Yes. Yeah, no, I love it.
And you seem to enjoy it. And
yeah, no.
it's great to be outside, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
No,
Very lucky to be able to do that.
don't want to be stuck inside.
No.
Yeah.
No, I go a little crazy when I get stuck. I can only usually do a half day or something, and then I just got to shake it off, you know?
Get outside.
Get out and do something. And getting back to the hillside site, why aren't there more hillside Syrah around? You know, that's a question I always would ask Jason and some other friends around town was, you know, there's, I suppose it's just something in the future. I don't know, but everybody's planted in these valleys, but it seems to me Syrah might suit some more hillside and some of those limestones and things like that up there. And how'd you end up with that site? That's a
Well, that really is fascinating. Sharon and I were at a Sunday Chardonnay tasting, and this fellow came up to me and said, do you drive around looking for the perfect site in the bay? And I said, oh, Johnny, in actual fact, I ride my horse. And I'm always looking for the perfect site. And he said, well, is there one that you've seen and would like to plant but can't? And hand on heart, that was the conversation. And I said, yeah, but I said, it'll never happen because the land is owned by the Glazebrookes and Alwyn will get it. He said, what land? And I said, oh, those northerly facing hills along from Bridge Parr. And he said, oh, no, the Glazebrookes don't own that. We do. And it grew from there. Johnny and I went for a walk the next week. I met his brother George, and it all just happened from there.
How big is that site?
It's not big.
It's quite a ways back from the road, so it's sort of
is.
tough to see, you know.
And you're only talking in hectares. And Johnny grows a little bit for himself, and some for Aunt Mackenzie. So yeah, it's good. What is special is that the mature plants are not irrigated, and that is what is unique there.
I think I have my Pinot down in Martinborough. I am fortunate enough to be working with a grower down there who just let it go in the first few years and just never irrigated. And now we've had these marginal years and whether it was a drought or it was a little too much rain, and it's just been great. You know, he's got quite a bit of grass down, you know, it just doesn't matter. So.
No, well, those plants were irrigated to kick them off, and then the water was turned off.
It's good. Well, it's coming anyway, so we might as well prepare for it. You know, at least so all that you would see from the signage and the hype around town that, you know.
Water conservation order.
Yeah.
That is a biggie. It's enormous, and there's a lot to be revealed yet.
Yeah, I think particularly for the Gibbet Gravels and some of these other places, it's going to be interesting times ahead, but certainly if California has dealt with it, we can figure out a way.
Yes.
You know, and if New Zealand's done nothing else, it's figure out a way. So
yeah,
we will. I was reminded of something else just now. Was when I did speak with you years ago. You said I asked you what your biggest concern was at that stage, and it was carbon footprint and what that actually meant at that stage, because that was sort of all the talk then was, from the UK and places like that they were making a big push that. Now, not to say that's slowed or stopped or anything, but it was 10 years ago, Peter. So there's a bit of time to reflect there, and to be honest, I don't remember everything in the conversation, so I'm not exactly sure what you were alluding to. But
well, we had I've just signed up with a new distributor. I trust it all follows through, but the paperwork, as far as WorkSafe, etc., for the UK, that's very significant.
Yeah.
It's something new, and so fingers crossed everything progresses and we move on. My former distributor, they were distillers, and they sold out to Suntory, and now they're back into distilling again. So
reboot.
Yeah, exactly. Next generation.
Okay. And do you head up to the UK quite a bit, once a year or something like that?
I haven't been for a while, but earlier on I was, as we established Brookfields, and I dare say everything equal, yeah, I'll probably have to head up later this year.
That's been an important market for New Zealand always, and you found it as well for Brookfields?
Yeah, yes. You know, London's wonderful. I like going there.
Sure. I haven't been to the. I've been all over Europe, but not to the England, Ireland.
Oh, it's nice.
Someday.
Go to Ascot and just it's a good place to go and have time out.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not opposed to city life. I kind of feel like I can do one or the other. It's either out here in the vines in the country or the hustle and bustle of the city. It's the suburbs that really scare me. That's where it gets weird for me.
I sort of stop in Belgravia and trains take you everywhere or
Yeah.
underground. It's all there for you. It's wonderful.
And what other markets?
China is important to us, and Australia. Are
Australia, yeah. Yeah.
So,
And what's whites, reds, everything to Australia, or
yeah,
bit
they
of
they
mix?
like a bit of Malbec.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. It's over there. That's right.
and I can certainly say that as far as Australian tourists coming through, they reach for the sun-dried Malbec or the hillside Syrah. Those are the two go-tos for them.
And your tasting room's steady. That's a cool little,
Yeah,
I would say, authentic experience.
yeah.
Was that always part of like the bricklaying and everything?
We tore out the original windows and put old colonial windows in.
Nice.
And had all the brickwork done, and I just tried to capture a little bit of history. So rather than modernise, we took the old place back a bit.
Yeah, my mom, when they were here in 2010, she really appreciated that. She loved that. We went to that tasting, and
Exactly.
I gave them all the cheat sheets on what the questions they had to ask and everything to try to.
They loved it.
Yeah, they had a great time. But we still have some photos in my family's house in New Jersey with us under the archways and
Yes.
stuff in there, and because she did all the brickwork in my family's restaurant,
Oh, really?
and it was the same type of thing. They went back
Yeah.
rather than go forward, and when they took over the family restaurant, which had been in the family since Prohibition, they pulled the walls, basically start pulling the drywall off, and they found all this amazing brickwork that had just been covered up, since the 60s or 70s or something.
Gee.
And so instead, like, you can't put new bricks with old bricks. It kind of looks strange, and it looks, on these archways and the windows and everything. So when she was driving in and out of the city every day to help, with my grandfather and my uncle in construction, she was pulling over to the demolition site and just taking 20 or 30 bricks a day.
Yeah.
And then, nobody, there was no bother. Then Philly was certainly in its slightly ruined, slightly rebuild stage in the early 90s there. So coming out of some scary times in the 70s and 80s. But so I think they were happy for a little lady to take a bunch of bricks away from them. But yeah, we really enjoyed that. So, which makes me keep thinking I got to get back there for a tasting. And that's continuing on strong, man. That's like, I was going for how many years before I got there?
Oh, golly, the late 90s. And because, of course, when I worked at McWilliams Wines, Tom McDonald always had Thursday lunchtime tastings.
Yeah.
And I much prefer to have the tasting at the end of the day.
It's not a lot gets done after that.
And so when I was chatting with Clive Holland, we thought, well, why not do it? Because the biggest problem a winemaker can face is getting a cellar palate.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I felt my palate was a little bit on the lighter side as far as Spanish and Italian wines were concerned. I'd always drunk a lot of French wines, so I had personal reasons to be involved and do it, and other than the sheer fact, just love wine.
Yeah.
So it kicked off from there, and I don't know, we've tasted 8,000 plus wines.
It's great. And now it's been only sort of under a year, or about a year since I probably have some time to do it now again, and I haven't gotten over that way. So, but the problem is now I have a 3-year-old, so maybe I could bring her. I don't know. I'm sure I've seen some kids running around there at times. She certainly gets it, that's for sure. She wants to smell all the time, but that's all she can do is smell at this stage.
But that's cool.
But getting back to your wines, Sauvignon Blanc, do you do or
Yes, yes, from Haiti.
from Ohio?
Yes, it goes to Australia, some to China. I think some went to Taiwan. Yeah,
And that's stainless steel or
yes.
yeah.
I used to barrel ferment it. Uh, One got favourable write-ups with the wine critics, but the public they wanted tank fermented.
Mm.
So
Yeah, they want fruit driven and
yeah,
probably affects the price as well, I would imagine. So I hear you loud and clear. Pinot Gris, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay.
Chardonnay. It's all barrel fermented. We do the Bergman year in year out. It has normally 25-30% Malo, and and we're doing quite a lot of most of it's wild ferment now, certainly with this last year. And then we do the Marshall Bank, and it has 50% new oak when we do it. But I don't do that every year. It's just when I have the inclination.
Yeah, yeah. If it feels right,
Yeah,
it looks right.
and we used to make a dry style of Viognier, and then I put it all into sticky. And this year we put down a little bit of dry Viognier, so that's
Cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
Bit of new oak in there, so it should be
Ah,
nice.
I'll be interested to taste that. Doing a bit of Viognier these days from just over behind the
Yeah.
house. Um, any other whites I'm forgetting? No. I must say I haven't had your Chardonnay in a little while. I got to get into that. That sounds tempting.
Yeah, the danger is to start making too many. You can't be everything to everyone.
No, no, and that's why if I do stretch out a little bit, it's very little bits. Like I just made a few barrels of Chardonnay this
Yeah.
year, and just because I love Chardonnay,
It's not going to break the bank.
No. Well, those barrels might in the first start, but after a while, it'll work out. But yeah, no, I hear you. You got to pick your battles and everything. And then I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to drink other. I'm not going to make a Syrah, and I get to appreciate everybody else's Syrah, and there's plenty around. And like I said, for the most part, Chardonnay or red blends. So you mentioned you do straight Cabernet. Is there a
That's
like
the Ohiti estate. That's in the estate range. So we do the Ohiti estate Cabernet, we do the Burnfoot Merlot, the Back Block Syrah, and they're all at the same price point as the Bergman and the Sauv Blanc.
And do you do a blend at the higher next level or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
in the reserve bracket, and the gold label was a Cab Merlot.
Cab Merlot. Yeah, I think I've got a bottle of that in the cellar from
And,
15.
Obviously, the Syrah, Hillside Syrah Straight. We occasionally do a Highland Merlot Cab. And, of course, we do the sun-dried Malbec.
That's in that next level. It would have to be.
But at a cheaper price point. The recommended retail, or they call it everyday price, is now about $26, $27 for the sun-dried.
Oh, cool.
So it's accessible.
Yeah, it has to be. That's about where I think a good Malbec should be, And yeah, like you said, every year something different, but you don't see there's no new vineyards coming in line or anything at this stage. Yeah.
No.
I see you have struck another strong cellar hand again. Nice, big, tall guy. I think you're on like 3 or 4 in a row there. But
Carl's marvellous, Carl Nicholson. And I think Carl's been with me 5 years. Had Dean Wishart prior to Carl for 5 years. And I look around and Christopher Key at Gibston. Christopher was back in the 90s. Had quite a. I've been very lucky.
Yeah, well, some would say luck, some would say good choosing as well.
Yeah, no, they tend to have come down the drive, and Carl rang up before Dean finished up, and I just said, I'll give you first refusal when Dean steps out, and that's what happened. So no, it's good.
Yep.
And Carl's great. He's enthusiastic. He's dedicated, and heart's in the right place. And we both want the same thing.
Yeah, you want to make good wines
Yes.
and not go too crazy while you're doing it. And
No.
yeah, Yeah. And what's the overall size of the production now?
Brookfields varies from 150 to 200 tonne.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not too big.
And a few weddings to keep you guys busy as well?
Yeah, that helps. Yeah, very definitely. My daughter's a function manager, so it's in the family.
I think that's one of the first times I've done that. I just left my old phone on. Cool. So what are you looking forward to? What's you know what's you know what else? You know?
Every year as it comes, and one day there will be a time to step out, step down, whatever. And yeah, but I'm just as passionate as ever. We had a marvellous visit this year, vintage this year. It was just a wonderful vintage for us. The reds are outstanding. As
I agree.
made Marshall Bank, and we'd done the work during the growing season, and all those things are terribly important. It starts in the vineyard.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I was kind of getting at when I said you're on the tractor, is you seem to be in the vineyard and out on the site and everything. You're not somebody who's just waiting for the fruit to show up and say, "What happened?" You know.
No, it's there's little things. It's attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, good, man. I mean, I think covered it all, didn't we? Are you good?
Yeah. Cool. No.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the chat.
Yeah. It was too easy, right? Yeah. I think we could probably do it again soon. You know, I'll have some more pressing questions for you. You know. Cheers, Peter. Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
There he is, the great Peter Robertson. Thank you again, Peter. It was great to catch up on some old memories. Don't forget to check out brookfieldsvineyards.co.nz, karriwine.com, and of course the promo code DBPodcast on decibelwines.com for 10% off. See you guys soon. James Milton next. Should get spooky.